episode of Big Head. This is called an ophthalmoscope. You may have been blinded by one yourself. Blinded by the light. Yes, well, this is what I saw. It is called a retina. We will be visiting the retina today because I am going to answer the question, how does a sight message get to your brain? How am I going to answer that question? I'm glad you asked. I'm going to get shrunken in my lightmobile and go in through the eye as light and go I'll be onto the retina and travel through the optic nerve to the back of the brain. And hopefully everything goes well. So let's head out to the lightmobile.
Oh.
This is the lightmobile. The suit will protect me from germs and other dangerous things.
What? Did it work? I guess it did.
All right, put me on the starting point.
Easy, easy, careful. Did it work? Did I make it? Anyway, this is the first stop, the pupil. The pupil is the opening in the middle of the iris. The pupil is like a diaphragm in a camera. It controls how much light comes into the eye. It gets smaller in bright light and bigger in dim light. The iris muscles pull away from the center to let more light in, and pull towards the center to let less light in. If you're watching TV in a dark room, you might get a headache. Because of the variety of the brightness on the TV, the iris might be working overtime. And that concludes the tour of the pupil. And here we are at the lens. It is clear and colorless. The lens focuses light on the retina, but we'll get there later. It changes shape to allow the eye to focus on near objects. So let's move on. The largest part of the eye is the vitreous body. It is between the lens and the retina. It is filled with this clear gel. It is called vitreous humour. Have you ever touched a fake eyeball in a store? It feels squishy, right? That's because it's supposed to feel like it's filled with vitreous humour. 99% of vitreous humour is water. So let's move on. And this is the retina. Remember that picture I showed you at the start of the show? The retina is as big as a postage stamp. This part of the retina is the macula. It is in the middle of the retina. The macula is darker in color than the rest of the retina, and it has more cones and rods than the rest of the retina. Cones and rods are named after their shapes. Cones detect colors, and rods detect shapes and objects. The rods see in the dark for you. 100 million rods are in each eye. This is where the message travels to the brain. It is called the optic nerve. The optic nerve has 1.1 million nerve cells. As the optic nerve leaves the back of the eye, it travels to the optic chiasm. This is where the message crisscrosses on their way to the brain. A brain cell, which is part of the optic nerve, consists of three parts. The cell body, which is the start of the brain cell, the axon, which carries the message along, and the synapse, which passes the information on to the next brain cell. Our last spot, the boss of your body, the brain. Where in the very back of the brain the visual cortex. It has 5 parts, as you can see. V1, V2, V3, V4, and MT. V1 is the largest of all the parts. It is also the most important. The most complex part of it is the cortex with at least 6 layers. V2 has a long common border with V1. It has thick stripes that are yellow and thin stripes that are red, and also inner stripes that are gray. V3 receives inputs from the thick stripes in V2. Cells in V3 offer few clues as to its functions. V4 was discovered by Samir Zeki. It receives inputs from the thin and inner stripes of V2. V4 consists of many cells. MT stands for middle temporal. It is sometimes called V5. Most cells in VMT are tuned to motion. Well, that ends our tour. Now I am going to retrace my steps and go back out the eye.
If that doesn't answer your question, I don't know what will. But we didn't name all the parts of the eye, such as the cornea or the sclera. Now it's time for the part of the show when we answer some of our frequently asked questions. John writes, why is it that your vision goes fuzzy when you stare at something for quite a long time? Well, John, your vision doesn't always go fuzzy, but when it does, you're usually thinking of something else than what you're seeing. And so the eyes think, oh, they're not really concentrating on what they're seeing, so let's just take a break. So not clear messages go to the brain, so they can't get the real picture. Here's another letter from Martha. She writes, what happens to stuff that gets in your eye? Well, first your eye begins to water. Then it'll wash it down to the bottom of your eye, and eventually you'll cry it out. But sometimes you'll get it stuck in your cornea. The cornea is a clear layer that covers the front of your eye. When that happens, you have to go to a doctor, and the doctor will pick it out with a needle or wipe it off with a cotton swab. And here's our last question of the day. Emily writes, what is in vitreous humor? And to answer that question, we gotta go to the kitchen. So let's go. Here in the kitchen, we're gonna brew us some vitreous humor. The first thing on the list is water. 99% of vitreous humor is water, so I got a big bowl of water right here. Second thing is a network of collagen fibers. Collagen fibers are quite small, so we're just going to use some spaghetti. The spaghetti is much bigger than collagen fibers. Doesn't really fit in the bowl though. There we go. The third thing is hyaluronic acid. We're going to use some plain red wine vinegar for that. Cells. No living thing can live without it. We're going to just use some rice for that. Salt. We're just going to use some salt for that. Sugar. We're also going to use sugar for that one. Ascorbic acid, also known as white vinegar. So this is kind of what vitreous humor looks like.
Only things are floating around in the water, actually. When it sets, it's a lot like Jell-O. Speaking of Jell-O. And that concludes this episode of Big Head.
Blinded by the light. Yes. Well.
Two like black dots. Are you done yet?
No.
I got attacked. There's a man. All right. No offense, but your brain is pretty lame.
I know.
That rhymes.
We're almost done.